in the framework of landscape and strategic planning for territories. A case study by May Nabhan for Barbir Basta Main Street. Before the war, this area had an esteemed reputation. At the time, it was busting with coffee shops. The tramway of Beirut used to pass through it, and above all, it was the residence of a number of Lebanese celebrities: the Prime Minister, Shafiq al-Wazzan, Al-Akhawain Flayfil, as well as the renowned painter Mustafa Farroukh, to name a few. Nowadays, Barbir Basta Main Street is undergoing overpopulation and mobility congestion. We are seeing the impact of this transformation on the landscape. In the absence of relevant planning, the area's urban landscape is exposed to dramatic deterioration. As for the environmental condition, a study on urban transport and air pollution in Beirut, conducted by the Faculty of Sciences and the Department of Geography of St. Joseph University, classified the street to be bilaterally built, crowded, dense, and exceeding the average annual concentration of nitrogen dioxide by 25%, thus surpassing the hourly limit value in 4 folds. Located between both boulevards Salim Slem and Bshar al-Khouri, the street preserves its role as main artery situated in the heart of Beirut, maintaining its original position vis-à-vis the early urban fabric of the city. In the current situation, the average width of Basta Street can accommodate 4 vehicles. However, there are up to 3 cars parked on the 2 sides of the street, which leaves room for barely 1 vehicle to pass. The intersection is most of the times packed and blocked, which makes visibility impossible for drivers and leaves no proper accessibility to pedestrians. We propose to reduce the width of the road while widening the sidewalks so as to accommodate 2 lanes for passing cars. 1 lane would be dedicated for regular vehicles, and another lane for public transportation and/or emergency vehicles. As for the parking situation, there will be reserved parking spots for the service of shops whose business type urges instant shopping. Conversely, the acquired area by the expansion of the sidewalk is for the advantage of public space. We propose to clear the intersections by adding plants of a suitable height. The pedestrian tracks will be outlined and clearly secured. Since the whole city is in desperate need for environmental regulations, it is essential to accommodate soft mobility trails and to reduce parking spots by increasing vegetation as much as possible. We aim to preserve the visual order through setting regulations for shop signs, in a way to control the visual alignment and coherence. We intend to provide more space for public daily life by imposing rules that ensure decreasing the number of parked cars. Following Kevin Lynch's structured arrangements, we try to assemble urban landscape components into a logical and systematic setup. By setting a proper aligned arrangement of trees, regularly trimmed, we improve the urban structure and we maintain legibility. We envisage to restore the facades of the classified heritage buildings to better reflect their value in the public space, and to preserve the landmarks by reinforcing their spatial presence, always for the welfare of social practices. Based on the topography, we mark the major curves of the street and the extreme altitudes of the ground, which exhibit the street into 3 sequences. Henceforth, the study continues accordingly. Mapping ages of buildings enriches the findings of the landscape situation. The dominating era of construction brings a different feature to each sequence. The mental map. It can be defined as the organized representation that an individual makes of a part of his spatial environment. According to Professors Merlin and Choyer, the mental map is a subjective representation of the urban space by an inhabitant from the places he is accustomed to frequenting. The memory plays an important role in the perceptual process. The one remembers bold elements that he could remember from a place or from a trip. Thus, a specialist can propose to a user to retranscribe on a map the places he frequents and of which he keeps a trace in memory. The mental map is a tool that allows the meeting between the mental, cognitive, and the material dimension of representations. As a method of analysis of the collected mental maps, we mark the elements stated the most in order to spot the areas of social value and the ones that lack landmark and legibility based on passengers' and users' experience. As previously mentioned, the need for parking lots is correlated to the shop's business type. By analyzing the survey, we find that each sequence has a dominating type. Gold market in the first, clothing and food in the second, crafts in the third. Our plan of intervention is the result of the interpretations by sector and the analytic diagnosis of the study. As a general intervention already presented in the beginning of the presentation, it is suggested that the Main Street is remodeled into a sustainable public space. And still structured within the hypothesis of the three sequences, we tend to reinforce the first one of a commercial trait by creating a public square as a landmark, to improve the second sequence of residential atmosphere by allowing a public garden with social activities, to preserve the ancient popular trait of the third sequence through a patrimonial pedestrian circuit. The Monument Square. It represents an extension to the Main Street's public space. With the statue of a popular national character in the center, it constitutes a point of reference for passengers. Along with the three underground parking levels, the square openness and welcoming outlook support the commercial trait of the first sequence. The public garden. On a lot surrounded by the back elevations of residential buildings, a public garden with three underground parking levels underneath is formed. The tiny old house is renovated and will be hosting educational activities for youth. The pedestrian circuit. It is created across what remained of the early 20th century's urban fabric. The design consists of one regular sidewalk marked by orange trees, while the other sidewalk is intentionally made narrower to allow parking spots. In addition to the lighting, that emphasis on the restored heritage facades. The intervention on the patrimonial level has an impact on the sense of belonging of the residents, where the feeling of abandonment towards the neglected wasted space turns into feelings of pride. The Urban Landscape Project proposes planning for legibility and the improvement of the public space. Moreover, the social rehabilitation would occur as a collateral benefit from this proposal, such as more space for social practices on the main street, in the public square, in the public garden, and through the pedestrian circuit. Returning to the methodology, we recall that the comprehensive study examined several elements ranging from the socio-economic and environmental aspects to the landscape and heritage, always in the aim to produce an evidence-based planning that secures balance and sustainability. It's a method with customized tools according to the case study or location, whether it was a neighborhood, a waterfront, a village, a valley, or any territory inhabited by residents.